into another dry area. How's the season looking irrigation-wise?
Yeah, we're right into it. It's probably a little bit earlier than normal, but you know we're full on into this El Nino weather pattern. I mean it's strongly westerly, it's strongly southwesterly. We're not getting any easterly. We're not getting any southeasterly weather. It's a long time since we've had a significant rainfall. Everybody's irrigating
Throughout the country?
Throughout the country. Hawke's Bay has just suddenly gone from being sweet, so to speak, and bammo, it's really dry in Hawke's Bay now as well. They've had a lot more rain than the eastern part of the South Island. There's parts of the eastern part of the South Island that are really grim still, like North Canterbury is still really grim. Areas up around like the Cheviot area, those sorts of areas, really, really dry. Little pockets of North Otago are incredibly dry. There's the odd pocket on the plains, believe it or not, that's actually in reasonably good shape. Was in reasonably good shape. Odd pockets, yes. So, but if you looked at it in general across the east coast of New Zealand now, we're all in the same boat. Everybody's getting high temperatures. Everybody's getting strong westerly type winds, switching from southwest to about northwest. Dry, low humidities, and crops are really sucking water and needing irrigation across the board.
We're going to have enough water?
That is a real concern. The alpine rivers, I don't think we'll have too many problems. You only have to look at the weather forecast every second night, and there's a weather warning for 200 millimetres in the headwaters. That's fine, it'll keep the rivers up. I see the alpine rivers being relatively reliable this year. So the schemes like the Waimakiriri scheme, anybody that's taking water, for example, out of rivers like perhaps the Ngātaroa in Hawke's Bay, get a bit of westerly weather into those rivers. They'll be okay, but the real concern is there's parts of Canterbury where we have very low groundwater levels, particularly south of about the Ashburton River, and pockets of mid-Canterbury between the Rakaia and the Waimakiriri River. They're very similar to water levels that we had in 2005-06, which was the last time we had really very low water levels and high irrigation demand at the same time. It's a product of us coming out of a winter where we've had virtually no rainfall recharge. So there's been very, very little rainfall recharge. In fact, some of the monitor bores for example, that Environment Canterbury measure on a monthly basis, they rose immediately after the irrigation season for example, in the mid-plains, they rose by about 3 or 4 metres, which is just everybody turning off. Everybody turns their pumps off, water levels rise. They rose about another 0.5 to 1 metre. That's all the recharge we got, where normally we would expect to get 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 millimetres of recharge. And they started falling again before irrigators turned on. So as soon as they turned on, we'd be back to where we finished in April this year. And if you then look at the drawdown that is likely to occur regionally in those groundwater systems, we're going to be very close to having some what we call self-limiting bores this year. So farmers they need to prepare for this. They won't be able to pump what they're consented to pump. So if you've got a consent to pump 50 litres a second, for example, and your water levels get too low, then there's too much head for the pump. So you common term, you fall off your pump curve. And so for the same amount of power,
very painful,
it's going to be very painful, because what happens is that when you come off your pump curve like that, then you end up pumping less water for the same amount of power going into the system than you otherwise could. And you can have other problems occurring as well.
And you put your pump at risk if you get too low.
Yes, if it does get too low. In 2005-06, for example, there were lots of people around that when they started, you suck air. So you get a big drawdown when you turn your pump on, and then it recovers a little bit. But if you start sucking air, then cavitation in the pump will occur, and that's incredibly damaging to pumps. You do not want to see the end result of a pump that suffered from cavitation and water hammer, that type of activity. Yep, it's bad news for pumps. So we're heading towards that sort of potential situation, and the way the weather patterns are at the moment, and the way they are predicted to be for the rest of the summer, at least out until March or April next year, I don't see any let up in the requirement to irrigate to maintain production.
I mean, people are going to start rushing in and using up all their water before they need it for...
Yeah, if ever there's a time, Rob, for people to measure their soil moisture, this is a season when you need to measure your soil moisture, because just about everybody has an annual volume now. You've got X cubic metres that you're allowed to use every year. Run out, you either take the conscious decision to be non-compliant and face the consequences, or you have to stop pumping, because it's either a fine or stop. So if ever there's a time to look at to measure soil moisture, to decide whether you really have to irrigate right now, or whether you can delay it, or whether you're putting on too much water when you irrigate, this is the year to do it. I mean, these are the years when you need to be making some really objective decisions about irrigating, and none better than measuring soil moisture. And that's not a sales pitch at all. That's an absolute fact. I mean, this is a season when because we've started early, because it looks like we're going to go a long time, this is a season where you need to be making those really, really good management decisions.
And calibrate your irrigator?
Yep. There are lots of obvious signs, particularly with centre pivots and linear moves. You know, if you've got, and I saw it last week, if you've got water going on State Highway 1, make sure you turn it off and don't put that water out on State Highway 1. It might not be a big deal, but it's a few hundred cubic metres of water that you're going to save that's going to be in the bank for later on. It's very obvious if you've got sprinklers that aren't working properly. Fix them. Get them sorted. You know, these are no-brainer things to do. You know, everybody's irrigating. They're looking at their irrigator every day now. They know what's working and what's not working. And
of course, it's very expensive, water.
Absolutely. If you're pumping groundwater, or if you're taking water out of, for example, any of the irrigation schemes, no matter where you are, whether it's Marlborough or whether it's Hawke's Bay or whether it's Canterbury, you know, it's costing you $500 to $800 a hectare for your water. It's costing you perhaps $1,000 to $2,000 a day to pump water out of the ground.
Up to $2,000.
I mean, that's money that you could be banking, and water that you can be banking by not using it when you don't have to.
Tony, very good advice. Thank you very much indeed. In just a moment, we'll be meeting a very, very excited jockey apprentice.